Yeah, people, we're taking another dive into some Baywatch Nights scripts. You thought the nights were over, but they've only just begun to never be the same. Alrighty, so I only have 2 scripts today, but I promise they're really good. Even before I'd properly read them, I was unearthing a previously unknown Baywatch Nights lore. Yes, the Baywatch detective spin-off is an endless mystery, and therefore there's always new things to uncover over time. And stunningly, one of these scripts is an unproduced episode. That's right, you're gonna get a peek into a Baywatch Nights that almost was. Pretty spooky, huh, folks? But first, something a little more standard. Today, we're going to be talking exclusively about Season 1, when the idea of turning it into the X-Files wasn't even a twinkle in Hasselhoff's eye yet. This is great, because in the last video where I perused some night scripts, I only had a single Season 1 episode. And it was an extremely early draft that differed significantly from the final product. Which was incredibly fascinating by itself, but left me wondering what a completed shooting script looked like at that time. Well, I will wonder no longer, because now we're gonna get deeper into the episode Heat Rays. Content warning. Heat Rays is the episode where they introduce an evil version of the Beach Boys, with the plot centering around them sexually assaulting a woman in the 70s. Baywatch Nights had no business going anywhere near a plot like that, but nonetheless, I must give you a heads up. Alrighty, so Heat Rays was formerly Sun Rays. I assume they changed it because there was already a band called the Sun Rays in 1964. They too did an act almost entirely identical to the Beach Boys, although they were named and managed by Brian, Carl, and Dennis Wilson's father, and opened for them on tour, so it was more of an officially licensed ripoff. And as far as I know, they weren't evil, so the fictional band became the Heat Rays. Although this was aired as the Season 1 finale, I think it was actually written as their 14th episode. The production code is a little more difficult for me to parse with this one, as it's labeled number 1204. And obviously, they didn't do 204 episodes of Baywatch Nights Season 1. My best guess is that the 2 signifies the second wave of the first season. That is, when they did their first retool of the show halfway in, making it Baywatch Light and adding Donna and Griff to the cast. And the 4 means it's the 4th one into this version of the show. It seems to me that they wrote their season scripts in large batches together, since the kind of a drag draft I had still included Destiny in it, and she was written off the show after 4 episodes. This theory is further bolstered by this script, where I discovered one of the best new pieces of information about Baywatch Nights. Donna was originally intended to be Neely? Yeah, so Neely Capshaw, Baywatch's resident bad girl, later turned Mitch's wife, was apparently going to be a regular on Nights at one point. I have no idea how far they were into production before Gena Nolin stepped away for whatever reason, but they were obviously far enough in for her to still be included in a shooting script. And this blows my mind. But also, Donna's early characterization makes so much more sense now. It was difficult to get a bead on what exactly they were going for, other than she had a sugar daddy, but sometimes she would say something that felt really mean or out of left field. Knowing this was originally written for Neely at the time, I could totally see it.
Do you think I'm personally boring?
Yes.
Once they were writing for Donna, and not Neely, they decided to really hone in on her proper characterization. Nothing. I always thought Donna was meant to be an obvious Pamela clone, but I guess it turns out she was a Gena clone. who was herself meant to be a Pamela clone. They just kept Xeroxing copies until you ended up with the mess that was Season 8 of Baywatch proper. But no wonder Neely and Donna were friends. At one point, they were the same person. This adds a whole other context to the episode they did later, where Neely is working at a club and they reuse a Nights establishing shot, therefore implying she works at Nights. It was up in the air as to whether or not they intended it to be Nights, or they just were lazy and needed a shot of a club. But now, I don't know, maybe it's an in-joke. I guess what I'm learning over time is that the Baywatch crew absolutely adored Gena Lee Nolin, because they attempted to put her into another spin-off when they did the Search and Rescue backdoor pilot in Season 7, while Baywatch Nights was in its X-Files era. Then, after she left Baywatch to focus on being a mother, they later brought her back when they did the show Sheena. I know Gena Lee Nolin had notorious stage fright, but honestly, she was great, and I would have loved to see her on Nights. It would have made my jokes about Neely being a sinister sea witch who frequently dabbled in the dark arts fit even better into the actual Baywatch universe. Heat Rays featured Donna's most iconic Season 1 plot, wherein she's tricked by some car thieves, jumps off a bridge, and somehow can't figure out how to swim back to shore for the rest of the episode. There's also a thing about some drug dealers, but basically, she's too dumb to live. Well, this doesn't happen in the Neely version, because she doesn't have rocks in her head. Instead, lending further credence to my guess that this was scripted to be a much earlier episode, Neely is deciding on new uniforms for the night staff after the club's inexplicable remodel into a bistro. And they really put some thought into the new Bistro Nights outfits, as they were intended to be a prominent feature of Season 1.2.
The ladies have bikinis on during the daytime, and at nighttime they put on micro minis and that sort of thing, so there'll still be a lot of human anatomy.
Interior, nights, day. Mitch and Neely sit at the bar appraising a well-rounded woman as she models a waitress outfit. Colorful, flowing, but a little on the sedate side. Neely lays a keen gaze on Mitch as he plays critic. Reluctantly.
Well, colorful. It's kinda flowy.
Flowy. Okay, what else?
Tasteful.
Tasteful. Not exactly what I want. Thanks, Dana. Carol? Model number 1 turns, leaves.
Why do you care what I think about your waitress outfits?
Women and men come here. I know what a woman thinks. I want a man's opinion.
I'm not good at this, Neely. Guys don't sit around saying, hey, how about those Rams uniforms? Blue and gold. Fetching, huh?
Come on, Mitch. Model number 2 moves in. She wears a tight-fitting t-shirt and short shorts with suspenders stretched to their limits over her breasts. Mitch's eyes widen. His voice fails him as he simply stares at her, the breath sucked out of his body. Well, what do you think? Thanks, that's the one.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, yes you did.
So there'll still be a lot of human anatomy.
I mean, everyone here is wearing clothes. I find this much more exciting.
Neely doesn't do a whole lot else in the episode other than mix up the Heat Rays with the Beach Boys. As if such diametrically opposed bands could ever be mistaken for each other. But, I mean, in case there's any doubt that the Heat Rays were meant to be an evil version of the Beach Boys, the script says they broke up due to family fights, they're on a reunion tour during a 90s beach music revival, and the stage directions straight up offensively describe them as such. Buddy Ray enters, easygoing, innocent, in his 40s but still baby-faced, a Brian Wilson type without the psychosis. Man, the Beach Boys filmed an episode of regular Baywatch in the season running concurrently with this one. They were developing the Nights Season 1 theme song at one point. Seriously, what happened between Baywatch and the Beach Boys? Something messy occurred, and I, the Baywatch historian, should know about it. The script includes additional backstory, where Lou apparently discovered the Heat Rays 25 years prior, and Buddy inspired Lou's "Yeah, buddy" catchphrase. Perhaps it was for the best that this was cut and they didn't tie the signature phrase used by the real Lou Rawls to a fictional band of gang rapists. And when Mitch says he lost his virginity to a song sung by said gang rapists, this was either a rewrite or a Hasselhoff improv, as it's not included in the script.
These guys played at my first kiss, my first slow dance, my first...
It did, however, feature a scene where Mitch and Ryan are dancing to the heat rays music a la Pulp Fiction. The first evil Beach Boy death is altered slightly, because as written, he dies from drinking too much and drowning while Marnie, their victim's daughter, neglects to help him. Maybe they thought it was too slow or not clear enough, because in the episode, she just hits him over the head with a wine bottle. I mean, that kinda makes it harder to pretend his death was an accident, but I guess her next murder plan was exploding instruments, so she never really intended to be subtle about this. While investigating the jacuzzi, they cut the beginning of the scene where the show had to remind us that Mitch is a lifeguard. Mitch and Ryan are with Buddy and the hand-holding Marnie. They stand a few feet from the jacuzzi we saw Marty Ray drown in the prologue. "Water, you're a lifeguard. This is your department." Similarly, the scene where the drummer is nearly killed originally took place on a pier due to some unrealistic photo shoot circumstances, simply so Mitch can rescue him in the water. Because, remember, he's a lifeguard. The amount of things chopped out of the jacuzzi investigation is actually astonishing, because they removed basically any reason for this scene to happen. They find a microphone in Marty's window, which Ryan inquires about in the script, but Mitch asks about in the episode, because heaven forbid she do something. It turns out that Marty liked to record natural sounds for his records, which leads into them discovering he recorded the audio of his own death, and that someone else was there. At least, that's what happens in the script, because in the episode, they start to listen to the audio and you hear some brief jacuzzi gurgling, and then they cut out the rest of the scene.
I'll see if I can filter some of this noise out.
Slow down.
There's no follow-up or explanation as to why they were even listening to this recording, because apparently there is none now. Them hearing the audio of Marty's murder not only pays off the entire reason they're asking about the microphone, but Mitch finding a tag on the water pump earlier in the scene, which dates when all of this occurred. But now, we don't even know what the hell Mitch grabbed there or why, making that also pointless. As for the heat ray's victim, Grace, the script portrays her as much more disturbed, and still an obsessed fan of the band even after they assaulted her. Which is super gross, as is the portrayal of said assault, which is a lot more detailed and explicit. It's an important plot point that Grace is listening to the Heat Ray song Shifting Sands when Garner and Mitch go to speak with her, as that was what the band was recording when the assault occurred. But they changed the music to something more generic, so the detail about the song being a trigger for her is completely excised. And there's no reason for Mitch to know or care about which song was being recorded when the photo of the group was taken. But in the final episode, he continues to mention Shifting Sands as if he knows it's important, for some reason. Instead of just taking off in the boat, the scene of Marnie's attack on Buddy goes on a lot longer, where she shoots at his dinghy for a while and explains why she's trying to kill him. This may have actually been filmed, because there's still a shot of what appears to be a bullet hole in his boat before he starts to sink. As it aired, it's not really explained how the hole got there. I really enjoyed the boat chase in the script though, because for some reason, Garner and Ryan are piloting the Scarab while Mitch does his hero thing. I'm fairly certain we saw Garner helming a boat once or twice over the years, but this is a skill Ryan apparently just pulled out of her ass. And I know, you're dying to hear about what Griff did. Well, most of his lines were cut because even this early on, there's no reason for him to be here. But he did get to keep this one.
Yep. I guess she found a time travel portal. Star Trek was right.
Yeah, she found a time travel porthole. Star Trek was right. Griff unleashes a wee sound that represents anything/anyone spooky. Somehow, my jokes keep becoming canon with the more I unearth, because the stage directions basically say pretty spooky, huh folks, multiple times. Mitch looks closer at the walls, gives Garner a look. Spooky. Anywho, enough of this waiting! We want the unproduced episode, and we want it now! The eBay listing where I bought this from said that they weren't certain if this was an unproduced episode or a spec script. For those who don't know, a spec script, or speculative screenplay, is a non-commissioned, unofficial script for a show, either submitted by someone hoping to have it optioned, or written as an example by a screenwriter trying to beef up their resume. In other words, it's not guaranteed that it's going to be made. But a few things tell me that this was, in fact, potentially going to be an episode at one point. For starters, this script is credited to Susan Hamilton Bryn and Michelle Rogers Burke, who both wrote for Baywatch multiple times. And Michelle Burke is the wife of Baywatch producer and co-creator Michael Burke. And it's unlikely she would be writing a spec script for this show. Also, this is Baywatch Nights. I'm not sure who would be writing a fan script in the hopes they'd get their Baywatch detective spin-off story on the air. And lastly, the draft date is August 17, 1995, which was a month and a half before the first episode even aired. So it had to have been written by someone who was familiar with Baywatch Nights and their characters already. Since this is a story that's never been seen before, I'll just cover the plot and the script as we go along. And away we go! Titled Save Gypsy Rose, we begin with a news report on surfers taking advantage of some particularly strong waves. Mitch is also living the surf dream, but Ryan interrupts him with one of those annoying cases he's expected to work on, just because he's her business partner and it's his job. However, we don't get to see what this case was, because they're sidetracked by a different case at that very moment. Enter the mysterious Sam Peterson, who uses a needle hidden in his cane to kill a man named George Pena. While Mitch is attempting to revive him, because remember, he's a lifeguard, he whispers something into his ear. And then, through some very convoluted circumstances, Mitch is somehow shocked into temporary amnesia via defibrillator. Suddenly, Pena keels over dead onto the machine, still holding onto Mitch. The paddles are forced up against Mitch's chest as Pena's weight depresses the shock button. The electric charge jolts through Mitch's body. Mitch is knocked unconscious by the charge. Despite being surrounded by other lifeguards who were also trying to save this man, Mitch being shocked unconscious is apparently not that big of a deal. So they just leave him alone on the beach for Ryan to attempt to slap awake? They had to have packed up the defibrillator, zipped up Pena in a body bag, and stepped around Mitch's lifeless form for any of this to have occurred. But I suppose they're right about the tone. It is funny. The lifeguards may not give a shit about Mitch being dead or not, but the FBI does. He's eventually awakened by Agent Sandra Halpern, who's described simply as an attractive African American. If you're guessing that's because there's the mildest hint of a Garner romance included here, you are correct. Speaking of Garner, when we first see him, he's charmingly using Netscape. All right, Netscape, let's try crime.info.com. Yes, folks, Garner can use Netscape. And you know what that means? That's right, he's a computer whiz.
Garner Ellerby, resident computer whiz. Agent Halpern. She's with the FBI.
Apparently, this wasn't simply sarcasm on Mitch's part, saying that Garner typing a random URL into Netscape makes him a computer whiz. Because this script seems to indicate that Garner was intended to be their tech guy at one point.
How does this devil phone work?
Later in the episode, he somehow uses magic, I guess, to enable them to zoom in on a VHS. Wait, that's her. They're in the parking lot. If we could just zoom in. He's struck with a thought. Garner grabs a set of wires and hooks one into the back of his VCR, then connects another into the back of his hard drive. The VCR is now feeding into his computer. Garner points his mouse at Ryan, then types in a few commands. He's now able to zoom in on Ryan. The reason Mitch and Halpern come to the office was because her orders were to speak only to Mitch. Hence, they leave Ryan behind. But when they get to Nights, Mitch insists on Garner staying there because he trusts him. So Halpern makes an exception. So, I guess Mitch trusts Garner, but not Ryan? Taking into account the characterization in the early Kind of a Drag script, I assume this is because Mitch originally hated Ryan's guts. Also, Ryan had to be left on the beach so that Peterson could pretend to be FBI and kidnap her, because Season 1 Ryan was kidnapped on a daily basis. During an escape attempt, she discovers a corrupt police officer, Willie Black, is in league with Peterson. We hold on Ryan's frightened look as she realizes the imminent danger both she and Mitch are in. Not Garner, though, the guy who actually likes her and isn't an asshole. Peterson calls up Mitch to tell him that if he reveals whatever Pena said to him, Ryan is finished. But this is all a moot point, because Mitch can't remember anyway. Fearful for Ryan's safety, Mitch lies, hastily gets rid of Halpern, and then proceeds to tell everyone he ever encounters all about Ryan being kidnapped. This includes Lou, who is Lou Raymond's in this script instead of Lou Raymond.
I wish I knew. Maybe then I'd have some idea what the hell's going on here. A man dies in my arms, whispers something I can't remember, and now, because of me, Ryan's life is in danger.
That's some heavy load. But Mitch's memory is triggered by a matronly Latina woman who is selling flowers at the Knight's bar for some reason. I'm not sure why she would be there, but Mitch has to remember Rose, which leads to him recalling the entirety of what Pena whispered to him. Gypsy, Rose, save. Presumably, they decided Save Gypsy Rose sounded better as an episode title. Mitch and Garner proceed to go on a couple of side quests while trying to determine who Gypsy Rose is, including visiting an exotic dancer and watching some TV safe stripping, because on Nights, they wore clothes.
On Baywatch Nights, we wear clothes.
As our boys take their seats, Rose peels off a long pink glove and throws it. It hits Garner smack in the face.
Not your color.
Of course, this stripper flirts with Mitch a bunch, but she's not the droid they're looking for. So they head over to a tattoo parlor to investigate Pena's very specific ink. For some reason, out of all the tattoo parlors in this area, the random one the stripper recommends to them is the correct one to go to. It turns out, Pena's chest tattoo belongs to members of El Mano Negro, a mercenary group of highly trained assassins. You can only assume Pena had some second thoughts about their latest mission, but as to why that is, you figure it out. That part of the story is over. It's at this moment where Mitch and Garner decide to tell Halpern everything, which kind of defeats the point of lying to her to protect Ryan, but I guess none of this matters, because coincidentally, the mercenaries have decided they're going to kill Mitch anyway. Unclear why they keep Ryan alive after this, because the whole point of kidnapping her was to leverage Mitch's silence, and I guess they were just going to immediately riddle him with bullets.
You hear that?
Sounded like an AK-47 to me.
That's what I thought.
Suddenly, a spray of gunfire erupts as Mitch and Garner dive headlong for an adjoining alley. Why would trained mercenary assassins use an AK-47? Wouldn't that draw a lot of attention? What's the point of murdering Pena with a needle to keep things under wraps, then trying to cover up the crime with a hail of gunfire? Why do Mitch and Garner lose themselves in a crowd during this AK-47 attack, but then go back to an alley when they're spotted? Do they think the assassins are going to shoot them with an AK-47 in a crowd? And Act 2 ends with them stuck in the alley, with the cop assassin seeing them and firing another round. But when Act 3 starts, he somehow lost them? Like, Garner is hiding in an apparently bulletproof trash can, and Mitch dives on top of the mercenary from an overhang like a damn chimpanzee. How in the world did any of that happen? But Mitch and Garner are saved when Willie, the corrupt cop, hears some cops and decides to book it. What is the point of having a corrupt cop on the team if he doesn't even have a plan for encountering other cops? This is even pointed out as being dumb in the script, as Peterson says Willie should probably know if other officers were onto them. Willie then chews out Peterson for not telling him that Mitch was friends with an ex-cop or that they're PIs. Which I do think is a pretty big oversight, but also, shouldn't Willie do, like, a minimum amount of research before going in to kill somebody? Surely an assassin would at least look into where someone works or what their schedule might be to determine what time was best to murder them. And what did Garner, being an ex-cop, change about this bungled execution? All Garner did was fight a guy with a trash can lid. No matter, they're going ahead with their Gypsy Rose plans anyway. And for that, Peterson has created a cell phone bomb and makes a dated AT&T reference. A bomb for the 90s. Reach out and touch someone. Smart guy Willie almost immediately blows them up when they get a call, and he mixes up their phone with the bomb. Another brilliant mercenary move. So anyway, after this attempted alleyway assassination, Mitch and Garner go back to Nights to research these mercenaries before their time frame to save Ryan runs out. But, I mean, they just tried to kill them, so surely the deal is off? Do they think they're gonna keep their word and set Ryan free now? And Mitch and Garner have already told Halpern about everything off-screen, so they didn't even keep their part of the deal. Ryan should be wearing a pair of cement shoes at the bottom of the ocean. Despite their office being right upstairs from his nightclub, Lou has opted to leave them a vital clue under a pile of newspapers, and they'll find it. No need to just tell them what he discovered. Let them waste valuable time trying to solve this latest Sphinx's riddle. Via Garner's magic VHS zoom trick, they look at a recording of the news segment from the beginning of the episode, where Peterson is seen taking Ryan to a trailer in the background. This leads to them tracking the trailer down, and right on time, because they just remembered keeping Ryan alive was pointless, and set the whole thing on fire. It's lucky for our heroes that the mercenaries carelessly set a trailer ablaze which contained a bunch of evidence that would tie back to them and their plan, because Mitch finds a brochure indicating the Gypsy Rose is a vintage airplane. It turns out a Mexican ambassador is going to fly inside the Gypsy Rose to honor the Mexican Americans who flew it during World War II. And I guess they want to kill that guy. I don't know, he's an ambassador. I think he's running for president. So here's their ingenious plan. Hijack the plane, tie up the ambassador, fly over the ocean, parachute out, and then detonate the cell phone bomb. Why does the bomb need to be a cell phone then? Why bother with an explosive at all, if they're just going to incapacitate the pilots and let the plane crash into the ocean? That would make it easier to pretend the death was an accident. What is any of this plan? You'll never get away with kidnapping me. Perhaps, But then again, we don't intend to kidnap you. We intend to kill you. So then, Mitch and Ryan chase after them in a stunt biplane, and we find out Mitch is a pilot?
Hey, you can't just take it. You gotta talk to the boss.
Mitch flashes his pilot's license.
It's okay. I've flown with the Blue Angels.
Absolutely incredible Mitch lore. And also does not explain why flying with the Blue Angels makes stealing their plane okay. 10 out of 10. Not only that, but we find out that Ryan is also a pilot? I guess? This is all so she can fly the plane while Mitch fights the bad guys. But also, this is insane. And I don't know why this is the part that gets me, but how and when did Ryan learn how to fly a biplane specifically? I get why Mitch would know how to if he flew with the Blue Angels. I mean, making him a pilot is a stretch, but par for the course with Mitch, jack of all trades, master of none Buchanan. But why would 23-year-old, somehow PI Ryan McBride learn how to fly a biplane? This, alongside the Heat Rays script, where Ryan can suddenly helm a speedboat, is really adding a lot of previously unknown skills to her resume. Oh, and she can fly this plane improbably well, because she has to maneuver it under the Gypsy Rose while Mitch makes a mid-air leap into it. This is absolute lunacy. And I'm 100% certain the entire reason they didn't produce this episode is because it involves a lot of expensive aerial stunts. Otherwise, yeah, sure, Mitch would just blast into a plane mid-flight, rescue a foreign ambassador, and fly them safely back. Oh, and remember how Mitch learned how to disarm bombs in the Navy? Once again, that doesn't matter, because he just chucks the cell phone bomb out the door. The cell phone bomb was, glued to the ambassador's shirt, seemingly as a contingency plan in case some insane lifeguard PI boarded the plane mid-flight to foil their plans. But Mitch just, rips the fabric to chuck it outside. So, seems like that was never gonna work. And I guess the mercenaries were immediately arrested by the Coast Guard upon landing. Wow, makes it easy! Interior, office, day. Mitch and Ryan play a little one-on-one Nerf basketball. Mitch misses a shot, then goes for the rebound. They simultaneously dive for the ball and collide. Their eyes meet, hands awkwardly entwined. Ryan stops.
What?
That was a close one.
Yeah, I was scared we weren't going to find you in time.
Me too. And when you were on that plane?
I know. You sure you're okay?
She nods yes, even as tears well up in her eyes. Embarrassed, she turns away.
Hey, come here.
Mitch wraps his arms around her, comforting her. Ryan still awkwardly holding the ball in her hands. Garner enters in high spirits. Hey, that's an illegal pick.
Actually, it's a timeout. And what are you all smiles about?
I bet it has something to do with our special Agent Halpern. Well, she did thank us again for helping put El Mano Negro out of business. And she was so impressed with how well I knew my way around the internet, she invited me to dinner.
Oh, really? Well, let's see how well you know your way around this net.
Mitch swipes the ball from Ryan and makes a quick behind-the-back pass to Garner. Garner shoots. The game is on as Mitch and Ryan jump into the fray, ad-libbing the usual squabbles. Fade out. The end. These scripts were absolutely extraordinary finds. And I love that there's never a shortage of things to discover about this insane show. Hopefully, there's more scripts to unearth in the future. But for now, the next video will get back to your regularly scheduled programming. See ya!